Hey everyone, and welcome back to Splash Page. I'm Sean, and as always, I'm joined by Andrew. And today, what we're gonna do is look at episodes 1 through 8 of Invincible and see if we can tally how many people Omni-Man killed throughout season 1. A special nod to the fact that he killed more than just human beings, he also killed a ton of Flaxens. So we're gonna do our best to estimate those as well.
Yeah.
The way we're going to handle this is we're going to look at this episode by episode. So we'll be going through each episode, outlining each death that we can visibly see, and then have to kind of make some guesstimates as far as total volume of deaths. And I think it's going to be a very impressive number. Andrew, what are you thinking, man?
I'm very excited for this. There was a lot of pseudo math that went into this project. And I actually got another question for everyone that we'll answer at the end of the episode. When Duplicate fights, she gets killed a lot, right? And then she just splits off into other duplicates. How many do you think were shown killed in the series? So we've got that number, and I'll get that to you at the end of the video.
Great, let's jump in. So
do it.
Andrew, how many people did Omni-Man kill in the first episode of Invincible?
Well, the first episode was a setup episode, and the only people that Omni-Man killed in that episode were the Guardians of the Globe. So that's 7 Guardians, one of which is Immortal, so I'm counting him as half because he came back to life later in the series. So 6.5 people killed in the first episode.
All right, six and a half. I didn't think we were going to start with a random number there, but let's do it. Some decimal points.
Yeah, we'll move on to episode 2. That was the big Flaxen fight.
So zero humans.
0 humans in episode 2, just Flaxens. So in that final Flaxen fight where Omni-Man's just kicking ass, he flies through 2 or 3 squadrons of Flaxens. A squadron has about 40 to 50 members. We only see one actually bleeding out, definite kill. But out of those 150 or so squadrons that he smashes, I'm going to guess maybe he got rid of a third of them, so 50 dead there. Again, remember, if one of them breaks a leg, they're probably not going to make it back through the wormhole back to their own dimension, so they'll just die of old age pretty quick. That's it for Earth, and then he goes into the Flaxen world, where he smashes through a couple of buildings that look like silos, probably uninhabited, but he does kill the general, so that's 1. Plenty of infrastructure destroyed, 1 Flaxen. He flies through about 5 individual high-rise buildings. Now, in estimating, like in New York City, a high-rise has about 3,000 to 4,000 people per high-rise, 5 high-rises, so that's at least 15,000 Flaxens, assuming that those buildings were fully lived in at the time. Then he flies through an entire city block. It's hard to tell if this is residential or a commercial, probably a mix of both, but it looks pretty densely packed here, so let's call this 25,000 Flaxens dead. Again, maybe everyone's home, maybe they're not.
Well, it's a red sky.
Yeah.
That could be nighttime for Flaxens. We don't know
Yeah.
what their sun situation is. So
Exactly.
let's assume people are home.
Yeah, and even if they're not, let's say they're not all in that one block, those buildings are falling over and taking people out that aren't in their building.
Right.
So that's a whole city block right there. Then we see, speaking of a city block, we see a few large city-sized explosions, like 3 or 4, right before Omni-Man takes out the satellite that cuts all the electricity on Flaxen. What's their planet called? I just realized I don't know the name of their planet. Yeah, but a mid-sized city has at least 100,000 people in it. I think one of those explosions was actually the satellite, so call that 3 mid-sized cities, so that's another 300,000 Flaxens dead. And right before he leaves, he drops that giant half a mountain on 3 more scientists, so that's minimum 3. But we found a website that estimates asteroid size versus how that would affect the planet. And we were talking about how that would maybe be a half a mile long, that asteroid, we think?
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think specifically because we are using this tool to estimate the damage that something dropped from a high distance would do to a planet. It was between a football field and a half a mile, and we're going to go with a half a mile.
Yeah, half a mile seems right. And apparently a half a mile asteroid would ruin something the size of Virginia and cause global weather effects, which would probably kill many more people. Now, this isn't speeding in from outer space. He's just dropping it, and it's hard to estimate how high up he is. He's somewhere between 100 feet and a mile in the air, but it's got to cause massive amounts of problems for the Flaxans and their planet. Major global-wide climate change. Maybe in the long run, 1 million people. That one's real hard to estimate. So going back over all of these deaths, we're somewhere between 340,054 and 1,340,054. We got a little bit of leeway over here.
Yeah, and I think the dropping of the half-mile size rock onto the planet would cause significant damage. I think that 1 million could even be low. Think about Age of Ultron, the second Avengers movie. That was kind of the end of the movie where they were going to drop the city back to Earth, and that was going to cause global damage.
And that was pretty high, but not asteroid high.
Sokovia, right?
Yeah.
Right, but it was still rising as that happened. And the angle that we have for Omni-Man is from a lower angle, so we can't really tell how high he is. Yeah. Sure, there's some buildings in the background, but he's over those buildings for the most part. So I think it's safe to assume that, he's quarter mile up there.
He's at least
it's going to kill a lot.
He's at least
people.
High enough to use this mountain as a decent threat.
Yeah. Exactly. He didn't use this giant mountain to crush 3 guys. You know what I mean? 3 guys, he could have just punched them all in the head and been gone.
True.
That was to kind of end civilization. And we know he did not end the civilization because in the end of episode 8, we do see a cut to the Flaxan planet. And they are kind of in a headquarters. And we can see through the glass that they're complete. The world wasn't blown up, but there is kind of a haze in the background. Could that be the climate change? I mean, could that also just be the glass having a little,
or that could just be like San Francisco or Tokyo or all
just foggy, like a little haze. Regardless, I think that's a great estimate for how many Flaxans were killed by Omni-Man specifically.
And I just want to thank businessinsider.com/asteroid sizes that can damage cities, states, planets -2018-6. We'll link it below if you're interested.
Yeah, we'll link that below. Check it out. It's a cool website. Why don't we jump over to episode 3?
Nothing. 0. Big 0 for episode 3.
Great. And then episode 4.
Another big 0. However, while Nolan and Debbie are having dinner or lunch maybe in Italy, a dragon jumps out of nowhere, starts just ruining the city. And Omni-Man doesn't help. Now, Cecil's guys get in there pretty quick and they take him out maybe as efficiently. Maybe if Omni-Man had helped, he could have saved a few more people. But there's no way to really attribute those deaths to him.
Yeah, but it is worth calling out that he could have potentially saved more lives and chosen not to. But I agree. Let's not
There's
count
no way
those
to put a
towards
number
his
on
total.
it. Yeah.
Jumping over to episode 5, similar to what Andrew was just talking about, there's no clean deaths there, but we do have a scene where Omni-Man is holding a bad guy upside down in the sky and talking to Mark about how to get answers out of him. And he drops the bad guy, and as he falls, Mark's like, "Are you going to go catch him?" And Omni-Man's like, "Yeah, I'll catch him." And then we just never see Omni-Man catch him. I'm assuming he catches him. Otherwise, Mark would have had some words with his father before all of the things that happen later on. But it's just funny to mention that we don't actually see him catch that guy.
True.
Episode 6 takes place almost entirely with Mark, Amber, and William at Upstate University. So very little Nolan in that episode. He kills nobody. But now we're getting to the fun stuff. So episode 7 kind of starts that crazy turn of Omni-Man into a mass murder of humans. As we already know, he has a mass murder of Flaxans. He starts by killing 5 different soldiers that are in his house. The first one, he smashes the soldier's head into the ground. The second one, he goes backwards, grabs a gun, and shoves it through the guy's face. The third one, he kind of backhands and then pushes into his counter, and it actually cuts the guy in half. So the guy's guts are spilling everywhere, just pushing him over a kitchen counter. The fourth one, he flies up to and grabs the guy's arm that's holding the gun, and as he does that, his body bumps up against that guy's body and explodes everywhere. And then the final soldier starts running outside. Omni-Man kind of flicks her. She flies in the air, lands in the middle of the street, and is obviously paralyzed from the waist down. and on her way out as she's
This
bleeding.
show is nothing if not gruesome, especially towards those end couple episodes.
Absolutely. Then Nolan sees that the soldier in the middle of the street is looking at the house across the street, keying him to that something's going on there. He flies through that window and runs into Donald and two other workers that are helping to spy on Omni-Man and his family. Omni-Man kills Donald. Donald hits that button, which blows up the house, which had to have killed those two other people. There's no way they could have escaped that in that amount of time.
You can't outrun a mushroom cloud.
No. So all three of those people are dead, and from my point of view, even though Donald is the one that hit the button, he would not have hit the button without Omni-Man being there. So we're definitely going to attribute those kills to Omni-Man. So right there is 8, but it doesn't stop there, as Omni-Man is then flying across the world to find Mark, and the Reanimen are sent to battle Nolan. Yes, they're not fully human. They were human. There's 3 of them. We're going to count them. So he kills 3 Reanimen. And then finally, our boy, the Immortal, comes back, who we've already given half a kill to because we knew he came back. Nolan re-kills him by chopping him in half. And I think, Andrew, we want to say that because he's the Immortal, you can't 100% kill him. So rather than giving another 50% of a kill there, we'll give 25% of a kill there. Meaning that in this episode, Nolan killed 11.25 people.
Here's the thing about killing the Immortal. It's parabolic. You're never going to get to 1.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
All right. Now we come to the pièce de résistance. Let's go to episode 8.
Yes. And yep. And I apologize, everyone. I'm going to be recounting as much as I can, as quickly as I can, because this video is getting long. But this is really where we should have spent the majority of our time. In episode 8, there are a number of deaths, starting with when Mark and Nolan are fighting in the field, and Cecil sends 2 fighter jets to attack them. The first death is one of the fighter pilots ejects. Mark catches him, safely lands him on the ground. Nolan just comes up, pops his head. We then see more fighting as the other fighter plane gets away, and Nolan punches Mark. Mark goes flying through 2 buildings. Doesn't destroy the buildings, but just goes on an angle through the 2 buildings and into the street. So what we're going to do first is count how many people died in those 2 buildings. My guess is that the buildings, since the buildings are still standing, and we're not quite sure how many floors Mark flew through, it's difficult to make a guess, but based on the angle, it leads me to believe there might be some, but not significant structural damage. Let's conservatively say 10 to 15 people died in each of those buildings. So we'll go with the high number. We'll say 30.
Fair.
We then see Mark hit the ground and flies through all of these cars, all of these pedestrians, and the guy's rolling out, and anything he hits at that point is going to die because of how strong and how fast he's going. So let's start with the cars. We only see actually 3 dead bodies after all of that happens, but there's at least 100 cars on that street. And it's not just what we see on screen. It's actually longer than that. So if we're saying there's 100 cars, and let's say there's an average of 1.5 people in each car, just because, you know, one car will have 1 person, one will have 3 people. Let's say that 75% of those people that made contact with Mark were killed. That gives us 112 more people killed. So we have the 30 from the building and 112 from people.
And again, some of those people might have gotten out of their cars before Mark went flying through them, but collateral damage, cars flying every which way, and shrapnel will probably come up with the same number, give or take.
And that happens so fast, there's no way someone got out of a car. You know, it's either they were out of the car or in the car. There's no like, oh, that's coming at me. So here's where we start to go big numbers. Just the people and the pedestrians on the street. The streets were extremely crowded, and we see that there are 3 streets cutting across the avenue. In Manhattan, 5 streets are equal to a quarter mile. So let's say he flies through those 3 streets, goes the full 5. We see 11 people crossing at a crosswalk, And that is one side of the street for one intersection. So probably double, maybe even triple that. So say 33 people are walking on a crosswalk for a single street. Well, since there are 5 streets, that is 5 times 33. That gets us to 165 more deaths because no one that gets hit by a giant rock, a car, or a piece of Invincible is going to survive when you're just walking on your own. You're not in a car. There's nothing around.
And even if they're not instantly killed, they could easily be amputated and bleed out.
Absolutely. Bleed out within minutes. And then that just is the intersection. So there's the sidewalks that are happening. And the sidewalks, people on the sidewalk could potentially be a little bit more protected by parked cars or just things kind of missing them. So I think it's pretty safe to say that about 50 people each block were probably killed just by things flying at them and being crushed. That means a lot of them survived as well. But that 50 times 5, because there's, again, 5 streets, gets us to 250. So I'm saying total deaths from people and pedestrians just walking on the street is 415.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So now we get the building that falls down where we have the mother and the daughter who obviously fall to their death. This is a residential building, and it looks to be a really nice, really fancy residential building. There are 6 windows across the front, and we're seeing about 4 floors of building falling off. So if we say that 2 windows is equal to 1 apartment, and because it's kind of the middle of the day, let's say there's 2 people in each apartment. Obviously, this apartment building is 2-sided. So that gets us to 24 total apartments that will be falling down. And if we think that 2 people per apartment number is accurate, that's another 48 people that died from that falling. Now, there also were people on the street. Glass is falling. This building's obviously falling. If they weren't able to get out of the way, say they were injured pedestrians just laying on the ground, obviously they're going to be killed as well. I just gave a very conservative number of 5 because I feel like if you saw all this happening, you would run away and not toward a falling building. So from that building falling, we have 53 more
deaths. And again,
deaths.
even if we're not accurate, we're guessing here. I mean...
Yeah. Oh, these are all guesstimates. There's no way. You can't even count the animation because they didn't draw them all. Subway deaths. This one is just one of the most brutal scenes I've ever seen.
It never ends.
Yeah, right. So it's a busy subway station, and we see about 11 people just standing on a platform on one side of the platform. Extrapolate that is a small section of it. Call it 1/5 of the total platform, meaning that there are 110 people on one side of the platform. There's a north side and a south side platform, so double that number. So that is 220 people that were minding their own business, standing on the platform. The majority of them obviously are killed because the whole thing.
You're not going to run out of an underground subway as it's collapsing. Maybe one person gets out.
Exactly, right. And even at that, there's people trampling other people. It's not going to be a clean, just everyone gets out scenario. Then in the subway car, we have a scene before Mark is shoved through the car where we see 18 people sitting in what I can assume is half of a car. And the reason for that is we see one door in that image, and there's actually 2 doors on the subway cars in this cartoon, as we can see when it's crashed. So if we double that number, it gets us to 36 people in each car. Mark goes through approximately 9 subway cars. So that is another 324 deaths.
Which sounds like a lot, but in a city like New York, that could easily be the case on a subway train.
Oh, yeah, without a question. In fact, that's probably not even close to... That's a low number.
And if there was more than one train coming in or out of the station when that thing collapsed, which we're not even considering.
And then also, the conductor of the train is killed. So we'll add one more to that. So we have 220 that were standing on the platform. We have 325 that were riding the train. So that brings us to 545 total deaths in the subway.
That's it, though, right?
It doesn't. Nope, it does not stop there. But wait, there's more. Omni-man shoots down through a cruise ship and then back up through a cruise ship. That cruise ship appears to be in the middle of the ocean. So, quick math here. We looked up, what does a normal large-sized cruise ship have as far as people on board. When they're totally sold out, it's approximately 6,600 guests and about 400 crew members. It looks like a nice summer day. We can assume that there are people on this cruise ship, but we're not going to assume it's 100% full. I mean, it's cruise ships. Do cruise ships really get 100% full? So we're going to say it was at 75% capacity, meaning that there were
4,950
guests on board, 5,350 total people on the boat, and let's say 50% of the people escaped because lifeboats and life jackets and all those things that help keep people alive at sea. So that's going to be another 2,675 deaths. And finally, we have an avalanche that is caused by Mark and Nolan fighting on a mountaintop. And while we only see 6 or 7 people running away from it in a few buildings, this is going to cause a massive disaster. And we did some research on small mountain towns. And in my mind, this scene always took place in Alaska. So we found a small town in Alaska called Talkeetna. And in Talkeetna, I apologize for the pronunciation in case someone's from there watching this video, they have 1,237 yearly residents. This town is placed in close proximity to Alaska's larger cities, as well as near its largest mountain. So I kind of had this in my mind as a relative barometer for what the town in the show could be. So I'm going to say that this giant avalanche wipes out that entire place. Maybe a handful survive, but I'm going to give it another 1,237 deaths, meaning that the total human death toll from Omni-Man in episodes 1 through 8 gets us to
5,085.75
because, the Immortal. But to be honest with you, while that number is obviously massive, it's not as staggering as you would think. We know that the Flaxen number is massive, but if we had to, take a wild guess on the amount of death Nolan caused in these episodes, Flaxen and human included, it is
1,345,139.75.
And our bonus question, how many duplicates died during the making of Invincible? In every fight, a couple of duplicates bit the bullet. Let me take a look here. In that Flaxen fight, we lost 11. She split off. And then in the Machine Head fight, only 3 more. So 14 duplicates were killed.
Let us know if you got that number right.
Seems low, doesn't it? But yeah,
it does. Yeah, I feel like I saw her blow up in every single episode. But then again, I thought the 5,000-ish humans would have been a much higher number.
That's very true.
Well. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. As always, we're still doing our giveaway. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be giving away 2 Skybound Invincible toys. We're giving it away to 2 different people. So once we reach 1,000 subscribers, you'll have a 1 in 500 chance of winning. Also, thank you for watching this. Let us know if you like this video. If so, we could do a few more Death Toll videos as well. I'm Sean. As always, that's Andrew, and we'll see you next time.